The power sweep actually is the lead play in our offense.
From the tackle, take the defensive end if he's over him. If he's not, you drive down the first man who is inside. Pull back and tell him to take the first man outside the offensive tackle. No one goes. Go right by them and field inside. If the YN has the linebacker taken out, he cuts inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. If you look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here, and try to run this play in the alley.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. You can find me on Twitter at Packers_access. I'm joined tonight alongside Jacob from the Packernet Fantasy Podcast. We got Tim live in Green Bay, who was boots on ground at practice today. And it's kind of a sad time, man. We've got one more open practice, right, Tim? Just one more to go to. Are you going to try to make it to that one as well, buddy?
I will be there. I will be there tomorrow at 11:15. I believe Nagler was the first one I saw with that. Thank God. So I'm not super early again. I had a couple practices I was extra early for this camp. So, but yeah, I'll be there tomorrow, guys.
Definitely. Good stuff, man. Well, we'll get your takeaways here in a second. And kind of see what you thought about camp today. And I was reading some of Andy Herman's updates, Jacob, and we got a lot to cover, really. And the way I'd like to do this, if we can, is be somewhat organized. I know we're going to get off the beaten path like we always do because this show sucks and it's just how we roll. But what I'd like to do is hit on the offense first, then hit on the defense, and then maybe a little bit of special teams, and then kind of wrap it up with the chat and anybody who might want to call in, that type of thing. Does that sound good to you guys?
Yeah, we can try that.
Let's do it.
Exactly correct. Let's do this. Let's kind of kick it off first. Before I get your takeaways, Tim, I want to share the screen and show everybody your the videos you sent me earlier, and I thought this was really cool. So let's go ahead and share the screen real quick. Jacob didn't even know what we're doing here, which is really cool. So let's check it out. So as we get in here, these are some of the videos that Tim sent from practice. I'm trying to think. All these were from today, I believe. Where did they start? Right. Well, there's Thursday right there. So right here, right, Jacob?
Yeah.
Or Tim?
Yeah,
Yes.
This looks right. Yep, sure does.
All right, cool. Just kind of narrate us through here, man. What do we got here? The D-line working, is that right?
D-line working with Coach Montgomery. He's giving these guys direction. What he's doing is forcing them to start in this bad position and then get them rip and get out of it. And he's, literally – I don't know if I got it in this clip. It might have been what prompted me to start recording, but Jerry Montgomery was getting in there and hitting these guys himself. And, these guys are in not full pads, or just shoulder pads and helmets. But I mean, these guys are padded up, going full speed, and he was in there right in the thick of it, working with them. So it was good, just like hand placement technique, getting off your blocks.
Yeah.
And then here I caught a little clip that was Kenneth Odumegwu staying by himself today after practice. I think A.J. Dillon's in the background getting interviewed by a 12-year-old or something. But Kenneth Odumegwu, and actually right before, Jacob will love this, right before I got this shot, Brenton Cox was over doing the exact same thing. I just didn't get him on video. So those two stayed late today after practice to do a little extra work.
Good stuff. That's the inside information we're wanting right there. Who's staying over, who's working late. What we got here, Tim?
Linebacker group. Yep. This little pass defense drills. What I liked about this, watching this, I didn't get it on video, but right before I shot this, Quay Walker dropped one, and immediately, unprovoked by a coach, without guidance or anything, just immediately dropped down and did 10 knuckle push-ups. And then what was funny is, like, 2 reps later, McDuffie bobbled one, and then he did the same thing. And this is like no staff around. These guys are literally doing this on their own, which was really cool. So they were working on some hands drills there. And this last one, I don't know if this is this was the get off drill. Okay. So Montgomery here is basically trying to get them to jump off, and he's drilling into their heads. Put your earplugs in, watch the ball. That's what he kept repeating to these guys. Put your earplugs in, watch the ball. You know, trying to get them to go full speed, you know, not be falling for hard counts, that kind of thing.
I like it, dude. That's really, really intelligent drill there, man, to do it that way. You know, just focus on the ball. Focus on the ball. I love that they use a green ball too, because it kind of, you know what I mean? It's not as flashy.
Yep.
Not necessarily blend in with the grass, but at the same time, you know, it does. It's not like they use a red ball where it's easier to see. Kind of train that eye to be a little more, you know, attention laced. What we got here, man?
Here's a good shot. This is what I was talking about. So you can see, Coach Montgomery getting right in here, fully hands on. That's Slayton. I couldn't see there for a second who he was working with. Yeah, 98. And I like seeing this, especially with our D-line group. You've got to have coaches that will get in there and get hands on, and not just stand around and scream at guys. And I tell you, I like watching Coach Montgomery work. So I kind of camped out by the defense today, and this was just some quick 30 to 40 second clips that I could get. You know, and these kind of things, this is, you know, nobody should be upset about seeing guys doing little technique drills or anything. We're not giving away the playbook here.
Exactly. I thought that was awesome, man, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to share those, just to kind of make people feel, you know, a little more in-house, right? Like they were there at practice. I think that's always a good thing for sure. All right, let's do this, man. Let's kind of let's jump into practice and kind of talk about what was reported today, Jacob, on offense. You know, I don't want to steal all the thunder. Why don't you kind of kick it off if you want to and talk about, you know, some of the offensive notes, and then if I've got something wrote down that you miss, I'll kind of chime in with it when we wrap up. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to just talk about like a more general of what they did, or you're talking like who highlighted or who was that kind of stuff, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, that's cool. Just to kind of highlight. We'll kick it off with the news of the day, and it's not good news like Eric Sutherland was saying in the chat. You know, good luck to Jake Hansen. Obviously, the Packers waived offensive lineman Jake Hansen today. I believe he was a 6th-round pick, if I remember correctly. And he suffered a shin injury in the Patriots game, if I understood correctly, and they decided to go ahead and waive him. So it kind of now the center room becomes a little less cloudy, right, as far as a backup goes. I know there were some people that were still kind of hanging on the thought of Jake Hansen would be the backup center. Obviously, that's not the case now. So that was kind of the news of the day. That, along with, it's not offensive talk, but I'll go ahead and mention it because it was kind of the topic of the day, that Rashawn Gary returned to 11-on-11 drills today.
Yeah.
It's like week one's a real thing, but let's stay on offense. I apologize for even mentioning it. It's just really.
Why'd you do that, man?
I know.
All right. Well, yeah, I was going to first start off with the starting, you know, group right here. This is per Andy Herman. So Andy Herman, shout out there. Love, obviously, Jones, Walker, again, which at left tackle, that to me, another is a screaming siren getting this late into, you know, preseason, that they have a lot of trust in this guy. And we can talk about that move of releasing Jake Hansen. Does that mean that to me, that shows, and tell me if I'm wrong in the chat, wherever, to me, that shows that either they're very confident in Myers' ability, or at the least that they have a Elton Jenkins as their go-to backup, which meaning that maybe they don't even have to keep 8, or maybe they don't have to keep 9. They could possibly keep 8, freeing up one of these other positions that people are the wide receiver, running back 3, safety 5, go on and on and on. Brenton Cox. I'm going to figure out a way to get Brenton Cox Jr. on this team. I don't know.
Can he long snap?
Can he long? Exactly. So anyways, it went Love, Jones, Walker, Elton, Myers, John Runyon Jr., Tom at right tackle, Musgrave, Kraft, Dobbs, Watson. And then on the defense, it was Clark, Slayton, Wyatt, Rashawn, freaking Gary, Bain. Gary is back on the field. It just feels so good to say that, because I did not think that was a possibility, not even close. Preston Smith, obviously, it would be Quay, McDuffie, or I'm sorry, would have been Campbell over McDuffie, but it's Quay and McDuffie, Jair, Douglas, and then Ford and Savage, which is pretty notable because I haven't seen Ford there other than a few times in the last couple of weeks. So that off the top right there, just that starting lineup, I think tells us a lot of things. Like I talked about, what do you guys think? Is there a chance that otherwise, who would it be? Do you see MP, or is that his name? MP, the guy that's the backup center at this point? He's running with the twos today. So
Yep.
I read something earlier today that I can't remember who tweeted it, but it was someone pretty prominent, that reports on the Packers. The vibe I got was it was either going to be Elton Jenkins or Zach Tom that would step into center if we got into a pinch.
right.
So, I don't know. For me personally, with how Zach Tom's playing at right tackle, I'm kind of leaning toward put Elton at center, right? He understands all the calls. That's what would make the most sense right now with Zach kind of excelling at the right tackle position. Now, could they put him in? Could they put Zach Tom in at center and then bring in Yash at right tackle? That could definitely happen. I don't know the answer to that, Jacob. And Tim, you may have a little bit better beat on it. That's what Dakota's asking here in the chat. That's the reason I got to pull it up. So who is our backup center now? It can't be our starting right tackle. I don't know, man. I don't really have an answer, and I think they like it that way. I don't think they want anybody to have any idea, all right, who are they going to if for some reason Josh Myers does come out of the game. What do you think, Tim, as far as center? Who would be the backup center? Let's say Josh Myers goes down with an injury in mid-game. Who's going to be the center?
That mid-game, I would agree. It would be Big E for sure. I'd put EJ at center. And to Dakota's point, which is great, who is our backup center? It can't be our starting right tackle. And I would agree. It can't be for long. Now, a game, 2 games, okay. But you know how this will affect the rest of the line, depending on who we have to plug and play there. But yeah, Zach Tom can clearly play center also, but I think that would be like more worst case scenario, I think. But we could look like total idiots here once this roster takes shape. I have no idea. And I think, to your point, Clayton, you're right. I think they want to keep this kind of close to the chest. I've seen Sean Ryan take snaps at center this camp as well. So there's other names in that offensive line group to keep an eye on. But yeah, I guess my gut reaction would be, in the heat of battle in a game, we lose our center. I think we move Jenkins to center.
Yeah, because putting a backup left guard right in between Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins, I feel way better about than putting Yash out on the edge. And I know there's a lot of people like, oh no, Yash is a great tackle, and he has shown flashes in the past. But guys, go back and watch the Lions game. He got benched in the Lions game because he was getting absolutely demolished. And I'm not saying that one game should defy someone's career, and I'm not saying they should get rid of Yash, but just that keeps popping up in the back of my mind, when it comes to that position. I would much rather have someone like Sean Ryan playing left guard in between Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins than having Yash out on the right side, me personally. But go ahead, Jacob. What's your next offensive notes? Anything else you got?
Yeah, so just on that note, Packers number 2 offensive line. Left tackle was Caleb Jones, who's back off injury, as we talked about. Sean Ryan, like you just said, left guard. Mpe at center, Royce Newman at right guard, and Nyman on the right tackle. It was interesting again because all of a sudden today there was more fumbled exchanges. This time it was between Mpe and Clifford, and Andy Herman had a little crazy note here. I had a note that said it's crazy how often this is happening. I believe it happened again on another exchange between 2 different, I think a different center and a different quarterback combination, or one of the things. Oh yeah, it was Josh Myers. Apparently he snapped the ball directly as Musgrave was coming around on some sort of motion, and he hit him like in the leg with it. So it's just, I don't know what we do about that. That's a glaring, obvious, just really, really glaring thing that's going on here. And I don't know what's more weird about it, though. Like Ryan's talked about, like you've talked about, it's not just one player and one quarterback. So at this point, is it a coaching thing? Because that's
I wonder if it's that you just answered it. Like, it's different guys taking different snaps from different guys. Like, how do you build any kind of consistency? And clearly the QB1's the one we're worried about getting consistent reps, first and foremost. So when it comes down to Clifford and Alex Magoo, I don't know. I don't know if it. I mean, not to say that you're wrong, Jacob. Maybe it is a coaching thing. Maybe it is. You know, I don't want to use the S word. It's certainly not a scheme. It's certainly not a scheme thing. You know,
Yeah,
like that's
no,
a technique you learn that in Pop Warner kind of thing. Like, this is how we snap a football, guys. Now this is how we snap a football at the NFL level, and let's do it consistently across the board. But chemistry is a tricky thing, man, and it's hard to build it instantly. You know, that's my take on it. I don't know.
Can I touch on one more thing on the offense, just overall? Because it seems like in a lot of ways, the last 2 days, all of a sudden, so many narratives have shifted. One, all of a sudden, Jordan Love's a great quarterback, and the media's known it the whole time. They just never, not a big thing.
Womp.
Our defense is crazy good. Rashawn Gary's back, and that's crazy. Now our defense is even more good and scary. But Jaden Reed, to me, all of a sudden, and I'm one of those guys, and I'll put it out there. All right, I was a Samori Torre is going to be number 3. Sorry, it looks like I'm getting
about that.
Are you sure about that?
About that?
Oh man, that's gonna make me geek out every time. We do that at work all the time.
That was right on time, Clayton. That was perfect.
Anytime,
we're getting better, baby. We're dialing it in, man. We're getting a beat on it, like the Turtle Man says. I'm getting a beat on it.
But
we need our center to have that kind of timing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be nice, right?
But I just basically think that right now Jaden Reed is the standalone number 3, and I've seen a lot of articles and a lot of the talking heads and even guys I respect on Packers networks being like, is Samori Torre randomly going to be a casualty cut? Because if I hate to, you guys know that I love Samori Torre. I've been pumping that for a long time. But the thing is the guy does things well, but all of a sudden now we've got 4 or 5 other guys that do the same thing he does, standing like 4 inches taller, and they run about as fast as he does. So that's where I'm starting to think like maybe I don't want to say, I think he's still a roster lock per se, but where I thought he was a for sure 3 to 4 wide receiver, I'm thinking now he's a 4 to 5, possibly a 6. And we saw what they did. They threw him out there a lot the last game, but if you noticed, it wasn't him running a lot of routes. I mean, he did have second routes, I believe, second amount of routes ran overall, but they were predominantly in the second half. And a lot of his stuff that anything he did in the first half was just returning kicks and punts, which people are like, well, they're trying to get a look at him. I think they're trying to see what else he has left, possibly before they write him off in whatever way. Because to me, it's like if you're going to show him at wide receiver, it's the same thing they did with DeGuara, who apparently had some really good blocking reps today, which was really good to see, because that's kind of, it seems like with Henry Pearson being out, his role is starting to shift back more towards that H-back role where he's going to need to be a pass protector. He's going to need to be multifaceted. And I think that he had, like, again, he had some good reps, but it sounds like, the offense is evolving, and I really do think that Musgrave is going to be that guy. He had a couple miscues again today, and it's stuff you expect with a rookie tight end. But all in all, this offense is making progress every single day, and I think people are going to be sleeping on it. It's going to be and we're so deep. We're so deep at every single position. I can't think of a single position on offense where we could – I hate to say it, where we could have an injury and probably make do with it, which – That's cool.
And the scheme too gives people comfort, I will say this. You guys remember last year when Aaron Rodgers was saying, we need to simplify things. We need to simplify things. And he caught a lot of heat for it. That botched snap that hit Musgrave in the rear end, it was all motion.
Yeah.
Motion is such a, I don't want to use the word. I got to be careful what we say here on YouTube. It's such an asset, right? In offense, but the same time with that comes a lot of penalties, to be honest. It's just like the RPO game. When you first start implementing the RPO game, you get a lot of illegal or ineligible downfield, right? And they've got to get that timing down. They got to adjust to that type of offense because the players weren't used to running it. Same thing with motion. If we're going all in on motion and you've got young players, that timing is going to be a little off. Now, I think it was on Myers. I don't understand how it could not be on Myers in that situation, where he literally, you've got to wait for the tight end to clear, unless Jordan just gave him the signal to snap the ball at that very split second as Musgrave was, crossing through. But I imagine it's something timing based. What are we going to do when we get on the road? not to be Mr. Doom and Gloom, but I'm already thinking like Minnesota, right? We're getting a dome and it's loud, and we got to go to a silent count. Like Myers has gotta crank it up, man. You gotta get better, right? There's no doubt about it. Another note that stood out to me before we go on to defense, Jordan Love, they said, had a solid day, was very accurate, missed Musgrave on one play, but other than that was really accurate all day. Attacked the middle of the field. They said he hit Jaden Reed on a deep ball. And the other thing that really got me excited that Paul Brettel reported was he played with good rhythm, right? Good rhythm. And you kind of seen that the other night. You've seen it in both preseason games. Once he gets into that rhythm, the game seems to come to him. Go ahead, Jake.
He started slow, which I think we're going to have to get used to what Jordan Love's personality is. It seems like that he is, and it's kind of cool when you stop and think about it. So he has the precision, the good playmaking ability, the happy feet. I shouldn't say happy feet, the good feet, the running ability, and the decision-making of an Aaron Rodgers. But he has like kind of that a little bit of gunslinger in him, that little bit of more attitude, more rah-rah, more team guy of a Brett Favre. And if you remember, Brett Favre was notorious for starting hot. No more rocket balls, please. Just in the first 4 or 5 throws.
You think God never farted?
They're way over the wide receiver, and he takes about 3 or 4 or 5 throws before he starts finding where his par is. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing from Jordan Love. He's got a big arm, and I think that he has a that gunslinger inside quarterback that's trying to get out, but he's trying to tamp it down, and he listens to himself, listens to his coaches, and then he starts to find his groove. We looked at all the media accolades and all the talking heads that all of a sudden on a dime, it's crazy how all on literally the Monday morning within a span of like 12 hours, literally all of them were like, well, today Jordan Love's good now. And we all love him. And all the stuff we said about him for the last 3.5 years, well, that was just, whatever. It's hilarious. But I can't say it enough. I think this offense, and that deep route was the deep fade to Reed, 78-yard touchdown coverage with Keyshawn Nixon in coverage. Just saying. Sorry, I left that out.
They said he'd burn him, and Keyshawn fell down.
Yeah.
It's kind of exciting. But on the other side, I'm going, who's going to be lining up in the slot on Keyshawn during the year? We got to be careful with that.
Let's talk about the backup slot as we go forward in the defense part, because I want to talk about that.
Absolutely. But the other thing, too, if you stay in that quarters coverage, it's not that big of an issue, right? Not that big of an issue. If you play man coverage and you're out there going, oh, we got nothing to worry about, I don't know.
You sure about that?
It makes me a little bit nervous. I ain't going to lie, man. All right, let's see. Well, the other note I had, Christian Watson had a very good day, is what they said. Another touchdown catch, and that was on Nixon, right? If I understood correctly. So sound like Keyshawn might have had a little bit of a rough day, which is good. Have him now, right? Have him now. All right, Tim, you got anything else on offense before we move to defense, bub?
Just one thing I noticed. I saw a lot more of the 2s than I did the 1s today on offense. Jadakiss Bonds was having himself a day at a couple plays today. And then I noticed Magoo threw a beautiful but dangerous ball, we'll call it, to it was one of those back pylon throws. Like, this ball was diving for the back pylon of the end zone, and he put it right on Jadakiss's hands, man. I mean, right on his hands, and he just didn't come down with it. But I was just thinking, man, if he would have caught that, we'd be talking about Jadakiss Bonds a little bit today, because he had himself a practice. And that kind of goes to what you were saying with Toure. We got so much talent here. Who are we really? Are we keeping 6? Are we keeping 7? Are we keeping, I don't know. I think a lot of that may have to do with whatever's going on with Tay Wick's injury too, moving forward, because you have other guys that are clearly stepping up and, trying to make a run at that wide receiver position. I guess my thing with Toure, just to wrap up the offense, would be, what are your guys' thoughts? Or maybe Jacob, you got the numbers. What's his blocking grade? Because he doesn't strike me as like a super intense blocking receiver, which is kind of the dudes we like to have. We like to have a couple of those guys.
I don't have it in front of me, but I know it was not. Or you said Taywicks or Toure?
No, it's Toure. Yeah, because you were kind of saying maybe he's not the 3, maybe he's more of like a 4 or a 5.
I know that Tay Wicks's grade was a 75 point something for his blocking grade last game, even though he had limited snaps. And I know that Torres was not that great.
Okay.
I could be crazy wrong, but
Keep talking. I'll find it real quick. Y'all keep going.
I don't think that it was that good. One thing, like we talked about before, though, too, is that fade route. A lot of people have been talking about how Jordan Love doesn't have the deep ball, and I just think that's just kind of stupid. What up, Cheesehead Murph, by the way? I've seen the deep ball be there, and I think that as he gets more familiar with especially Dobbs and Watson, and we start going against like all of these practices, like they're great. I read in the book that I've been reading that I keep dropping reference to, Take Your Eye Off the Ball by Pat Kerwin. They talk about a lot of different things that have kind of become relevant. And one of them was, oh God, I just had a brain fart. Take it over, Clayton. 1 second. I got to get this real quick.
You're good, man. So to answer your question, Tim, 59.4, I believe. Let me double check. Yeah, 59.4 was Samori Touré's run blocking grade against the New England Patriots. So the most recent. So not great, but same time, it's one game, right?
Right.
So let's see here. Nick the Realtor in the chat says, if we keep 6, we may have to let Touré go. That would hurt, but we have to keep the best 6 at least, right? It's all about creating the best roster, man. That's what it comes down to. It's that simple, for sure. Let's see here. One more from Nick the Realtor. He said,
I was going to say,
go ahead.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah, because of the fact that I was astonished by the fact that if that hasn't changed, due to that collective bargaining agreement, that you only get 14 fully padded practices in a given season. That blew my mind. The fact that the coaches are supposed to, especially on defense, that they're supposed to make an educated decision. 14 fully padded practices for the whole year. Like the fact that these coaches even know how to pick. I mean, that's insane to me. I don't know. That blew my mind when I read that. So
something else too. And do you guys remember? It was said that Rodgers didn't like joint practices, right? He hates joint practices, this and that. Do you know why? Because I heard the story. I heard exactly why and when it started. Matt LaFleur's first year here, they went down to do joint practices with the Houston Texans. And they went all the way down there to do joint practices with the Houston Texans, right? And basically what happened was they were playing the Chicago Bears week 1. And the defensive coordinator, I think it was Rod Marinelli, maybe. I can't remember who it was. Whoever the defensive coordinator was, his brother was on Houston's coaching staff. So what they didn't want to do, Matt LaFleur didn't want to tip his hand to that coach's brother, so he would take that information back and have a little bit of an edge in Chicago. So they ran a very vanilla offense the entire padded practice. So what Aaron was saying was this was a waste of time. We would have been more productive having a normal practice than coming down here and doing that. Then the media runs with it, and it turns into Aaron Rodgers hates joint practices. And now all of a sudden he loves them with the Jets. No, the details of that whole situation was they wasted that whole practice because they were afraid of tipping their hand. One of the few times where the joint practice can kind of bite you in the rear end, and that is kind of the stars aligning with that specific scenario, I should say. But anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, the CBA and the limited practice, and that's why a lot of teams struggle at tackling too, right, Tim? Because you can't hit the way you used to in practice too. So,
Yep.
All right, let's move on, dude. Let's go to defense. Is that cool with you guys?
Yeah.
Go, Tim. Right. Go, Tim.
Yeah, here we go, baby. Here we go. So I've got some notes here. Tim, do you want to kind of kick it off with defense and just some of your takeaways, man, from practice today? Maybe what stood out. Maybe if you were on the old Twitter today or the old X and seen some of the stuff that was tweeted about. What stood out on defense?
You can't say if you're on the old X, okay? Tim's married. Can't do that.
Oh my God.
Man, trying to save his marriage.
Go ahead, Tim.
There it is. Oh, man. Well, I got a good one to start since we're just coming off the offense. So the twos were running, and Sean Clifford was quarterback, and he was trying to look. I don't know what. I think he was trying to look somebody off, and Eric Wilson came up and had a PBU. And one of my favorite moments was like literally hearing Sean Clifford like jog over to him and go, "Eric, did you see my eyes?" So it's like, and he's kind of like, "Yeah, I did." So if you were trying to look me off, it didn't work. Basically, that was kind of a cool moment. Especially for a guy. What would we put Wilson right now? Probably fourth on the depth chart, maybe.
Yeah, probably in that range. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, to see him come up and just make kind of a big play like that in the team drills was pretty cool. And then we got to talk about it, man. Anthony Johnson Jr. and Jonathan Owens running with the twos today. Rudy Ford and Darnell Savage at the ones. We just talked about this last night, and clearly either they're just shaking things up, or something. There was a change. There was clearly a difference today. It'll be interesting to see what the ones and twos look like tomorrow. Maybe this is all just Seattle prep, and we're just trying to kind of mix and match and find out what the lineup's going to be for the game on Saturday. But I thought that was definitely notable.
Yeah. And I've got that note here too. It said Rudy Ford got the majority of snaps with Savage. Owens was with the second group. And Goody said in his presser, from what I understand, quote, "No one has taken the spot next to Savage yet." So it's kind of what we talked about, Tim, and you alluded to it there just a second ago. Are they just were they giving Jonathan Owens a legit shot? And of course, Tavarius Moore has been battling some injuries, so he kind of, what we always say, you can't make the club in the tub, right?
Yep.
So I think they were giving Jonathan Owens a real strong. They know what they got in Rudy, right? They've seen it all year last year, and I think they like what they've seen in Rudy. But it's all right. We don't know hardly anything about Jonathan Owens and how he fits in this defense. We just know he was a good tackler at Houston, and he was absolute booty in coverage. So with that being said, let's put him out there and see what we got. And now maybe we're coming into that time of camp where they go, okay, he's shown us what he's got. Now let's see what Rudy looks like. We've got a fresh look at Jonathan Owens. Let's see if Rudy really pops. So you guys know, and Dakota seems to agree, yes, keep Rudy Ford there. That's my pick. I thought Rudy did really, really well. And Dakota also says in the chat, I really like Anthony Johnson Jr., though. I still think he can be better than Ford by this time next year. Seems like there might be a little more upside. I know the people that I trust in the draft community, Dakota, they were definitely high on Anthony Johnson Jr. He was hands down one of the best picks at the time in the draft that he was taken. He was definitely right there at the top of the board. So I like the Anthony Johnson pick, and it seems like he's shown some flashes here in camp. Let's see here. Tim in the chat says we will pick up a safety off waivers. There's a chance, definitely a chance of that, man. Depends on what happens with these injuries too, with Tarvarius Moore and some of these other guys. So another note I had here, this was by Paul Brettel. He said Lucas Van Ness had his best practice in the last week or two. Said he really got after the quarterback several times. That's good to hear, right? And this might be a good time to mention this. I haven't said this to anyone else. I want to give a shout out to the new members, the new YouTube page members. We've got memberships, guys, that it kind of sets up by default once your channel gets to a certain level. And I didn't realize it last night. We actually have one join as a member live on the stream, and I shouted them out. And then when I went back, I had no idea that we had several new members. So we had Jerry A, Chad Inc., James Jackson, United Bates, Dan Cott, and CL Freeman all joined as members. So I just want to say thanks for supporting the stream. We really, really appreciate it. And what I wanted to do, I wanted to do something to kind of show our appreciation for those who are supporting the channel. So mention Lucas Van Ness. I've got an autographed Lucas Van Ness jersey from pristineauction.com, Beckett style jersey, autographed with the certificate of authenticity. We're going to give that away to one of the members of the channel, okay? And what we'll do is some kind of drawing. We'll make it fair for everyone across the board. But that goes for anyone who's a member on the channel. I know Eric Sutherland, Cheesehead Murph. There was another one too. Might not be in the chat. I'm trying to remember. I've got it right here. I just want to give a shout out to those people because we really, really appreciate, like I said, you guys joining and helping. Roger Davis was the other one. So if you guys want to enter yourself into that contest or that drawing, I should say, to win an autographed Lucas Van Ness jersey. If you become a member, we'll set a deadline, and I'll kind of mention when that deadline is going to be to give people time to enter themselves into that contest. But just wanted to say thanks. I'm so sorry it got overlooked last night on the stream that we didn't mention. A shout out to all those that are members of the channel. Like I said, it goes a long way, and we really appreciate the support. Back to defense. TJ Slayton. This one really stood out to me today, Jacob. TJ Slayton got nickel reps alongside Kenny Clark. And the way I read the tweets and the update was he may have taken that nickel defensive tackle spot from Devontae Wyatt. And you guys have heard me talk about TJ Slayton. Like he really popped at the end of the year. Sounds like he's having an absolutely phenomenal camp. You've seen him kind of pop in the game the other night against the Patriots as well. That might be – they may keep those two big boys on the field the majority of the time. And, you know, I love Devontae Wyatt. Right, Ryan's talked about it, a lot here lately, Jacob. That Devontae's really not flashed here lately. You know, we hear about how he flashes in practice, but when we get in the preseason games, he just kind of hasn't been, noticeable. TJ Slayton may have taken some reps from him, dude. As far as just, hey, look, when we're in nickel, keep him out there, keep the big boy out there. He's like I said, man, his pass rush seems to be improving. It's exciting. What do you think about that, man? I know you're probably like me. You don't like the idea of a first-round pick getting reps taken away by TJ Slayton, but at the same time, put the best 11 out there, right?
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn on that because if you guys – I don't remember how long we've been doing this, Clayton, because everything kind of mashes together from the time that I helped with Ryan. I know that I was on the live stream, I believe, when we drafted Rashawn Gary. No, maybe not. I know I was there for – Jordan Love, I think. God, I don't know how long it's been, but I really love TJ Slayton. He's one of my guys, which just means he was drafted a little bit later and nobody gave him a shot. And Ryan hated him. That means I automatically love him because I feel like that's just our dynamic now. If Ryan doesn't like him, I'm gonna buy his jersey. So, but yeah, man. And one thing I will just to pick on Ryan because I feel like it's great content. He said that TJ Slayton. I think he's even said this recently. He goes, TJ Slayton is not going to be a pass rush specialist of any kind. This would probably beg to differ to that. I mean, and I've said before that he has some little twitch in him for being that guy wearing 93. He's not quite Gilbert Brown-esque. He's a little more trim. He's a little more trim than that gentleman, I would say, but he possesses a little bit more hand movement. I think that he's good at he can take on double teams, and he shows that he can split them, get around them, make the run defense a little bit more stout. But I really do think that for whatever reason, we're starting to see this guy's somewhat develop a little bit of a pass rush, or at least just the guys around him are so good that all he has to do is, some very minimal basic stuff. And then you look at, I know we're talking about him right now, but the guys that are backing him up makes me even more jacked because you're talking about, like we talk about, God forbid, Kenny or TJ has to any sort of injury. I'm so high on Carl Brooks and Kobe Wooden, and even Jonathan Ford as of late has shown up, and he was in a few notes today too, where he's kind of making some plays, and that's a big man. Jonathan Ford is a big human being, so I like almost like the defense or like the offense. The defense, other than safety and maybe inside linebacker, I'm not worried about the depth if an injury were to happen. So
you hit it right on the head there, Jacob. Those are the two position groups on defense, at least from where I'm seeing it. If there's going to be concern about depth, it's going to be at safety and middle linebacker right now. But there's still some ball to be played here in the preseason. Maybe somebody steps up. Until we know for sure, we hear that Devondre Campbell's injury is not serious, and that's good to hear. But, when are we going to see him on the field again? That's the real concern. So I do think we're a little thin with promise at middle linebacker without Devondre Campbell. I mean, there's some guys that can step up. I mean, we just talked about Eric Wilson making a play today. So, I'm excited about this defense for sure. And you took it right off my notes, man. You must have saw my notes somehow. TJ Slayton, Keyshawn Banks, Carl Brooks, Jonathan Ford were like the first names on my list when it comes to talking about the defense today. They had a great practice today. So
stuff. We get a comment here, and I'm gonna share an audio with you guys real quick. B the Hammer says, with Inigbare flashing in camp and preseason, and Gary coming back, it's exciting for this pass rush. It really is. Now, you guys know I'm a big fan of the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi and Femi Abemefe. They have an awesome podcast. Go like, subscribe, all that stuff for the GM Shuffle. But they were talking about the Green Bay Packers earlier today, and I want to play it because he mentions Inigbare. He also mentions Jordan Love. It's just about 2 minutes long. I want you guys to hear this real quick. Hopefully it's not too loud, Jacob. I apologize if it's blaring in your ears, but let me turn it down a little bit, and I'll try to adjust as we go. But here was former GM, spent 35 years in professional football as a scout, as a confidant, worked with Bill Belichick for years, both in Cleveland and in New England. He worked with Al Davis in Oakland, been all over the place, was actually a personal assistant to Bill Walsh way back in the day when he was an intern. This is Michael Lombardi talking about the Green Bay Packers, him and Femi Abemefe on the GM Shuffle.
Are you excited about Jordan Love? Jordan Love, 5 of 8, 84 yards against the Patriots, threw a nice touchdown pass as well during the series. Any optimism here about Jordan Love? Because Packer fans are starting to believe.
I think Jordan Love has just got to be good. Let's not get him great. I think, when he threw the touchdown pass to the Patriots had taken their coverage guys out of the game. I think it was Wade that was covering. Dobbs made a great play on Bolden earlier on that drive and just got his foot in bounds. It was a good throw, and Dobbs made a great catch. I think Green Bay has a chance to be really good defensively. They draft Van Ness in the first round. But this 55 kid, I can't say his last name.
Yeah,
from
Enigbare? Yeah, Kingsley Enigbare.
This guy, this Kingsley is the King man is good. Now he might be their best rusher on the team. I mean, he's better than Preston Smith. He's better than Van Ness right now. He can really bring the heat. He can rush the power. They're going to have to play him. I think they're good on, and this is not counting Rashawn Gary. I mean, they didn't play him. So, and then Aaron Jones played one play for 6 yards, and and then he came out of the game. I think if Love can just make the easy, keep it easy, as opposed to making it hard. They got a chance to move the football, and I think they will. I'm not down on Green Bay at all. I'm not saying that Love's going to be a Pro Bowler, but I don't think Love's a washout. I think that they got enough stuff around him, especially with Watson, especially with Dobbs, especially with their running game. I think that they can certainly help him.
Yeah, well, hopefully Big Daddy's starting to turn a little bit. I know you wrote that column, and Big Daddy was all up on you.
I don't think first of all, Big Daddy's not. It's amazing. He's kind of like you a little bit. Big Daddy cannot watch and know. That's an incredible quality to have. You don't even watch the game, but I don't know how that happens. You watch 4 games at one time. I don't know how the hell that happens.
Big Daddy
doesn't even watch. He just looks at the box score or something, and he knows. It's a unique quality to have. It's unbelievable.
He's all knowing when it comes to the Green Bay Packers and other things as well.
I mean, most of these fans are all knowing. It's like all these people judging quarterbacking play in preseason. We didn't even talk about, the rank.
So anyway, that was pretty much the gist of it. I thought that was funny. And Big Daddy, for those of you who don't know, don't listen to the GM Shuffle, you need to start listening to it. It's a phenomenal podcast. But I can't remember if it's Michael Lombardi's uncle or his cousin or what, but it's an older relative that does like remodel work for him and stuff. And he's a big Packers fan. And he's like, the guy never watches the game, but he's got every answer on how to fix the organization. He's constantly talking about that. And of course, Femi likes to watch Quad Box, and he got mad. They got together the other day at the Veasan Studios and watched some preseason football. And Femi was mad that he didn't have Quad Box. And Lombardi's like, how the hell do you watch 4 games at once? Like, what are you watching? But back to his comment. What he does is he goes back and watches the tape. Like I talk about how I watch the tape, like you're watching intently. And Jacob, you're starting to learn by reading the book, Take Your Eye Off the Ball. You're knowing what you're actually looking for now at specific position groups. The reason I watch every snap of Packer football, and I have for the last decade, I watch every snap 3 times, is because I want to watch the front, I want to watch the mid, and I want to watch the secondary. And I want to look at it like that from the offensive and defense perspective. I'm looking at the offensive line, the defensive line. Okay. Now I'm looking at the running back and the linebackers. Now I'm looking at the secondary and the wide receivers. That's kind of how I watch the game and try to pick up on every little thing. And what's crazy is I still miss a freaking ton of stuff every single time. and you go back and watch it, you could watch it the fourth time and go, man, there's still stuff I'm coming away with. That could happen. So anyway, what he said about Enigbare, he said he's the best pass rusher on the field other than Gary, basically. He said, they don't even have Gary on the field right now.
Crazy.
Think about that. This is what we talked about. What was it, an episode or two ago, Tim? If Enigbare comes out and he's a better edge rusher than Preston Smith, now Preston Smith becomes a rotational guy. And I don't know if that'll happen in the first quarter of the season, if it happens at all. But to think that he's at Preston Smith's level now, that's remarkable. And again, I want to say it's one performance, but what did Paul Brittle say? He's having the best camp that he's seen anybody have, light years ahead of where he was last year as a rookie. So I don't know, Tim, I get excited about that pass rush when you think of people like that. Oh, and by the way, Lucas Van Ness might be your fourth best edge rusher, just a physical specimen, right? It's pretty cool, man.
I think I agree, and I think with Enigbare, it's like we always talk. It's consistency. He's been consistently showing these signs, consistently growing, consistently making plays. We want to see this rolling into the season. Yeah, there's no doubt this guy's on the team, and you're right. I think, and I also think with the comment about Preston Smith, him possibly moving out of that starting role or into a rotational role. I think he's definitely the type of player that would almost embrace that. I don't think he's going to be a guy upset about having to give up snaps. I think he wants to do what he can to help this team win. And you can do a lot worse than Preston Smith rotating in on your defense. So, I mean, I feel really good. Feel good about our front. The edge, like you said, Van Ness could be an absolute monster. I do think with LVN, it's you got to give him time. He needs time. He needs reps. He has rookie moments, and then he has unbelievably sound, great football judgment, great play. Hands are in the right position. He's making the right moves. So the flashes are there. It's coming, guys. This is, for all intents and purposes, it should be a top 10 D this year. And that's not even being a homer. That's just looking at what we've been looking at here the last 3.5 weeks, and really going back to even OTAs, you could start to see some of this stuff. So I'm excited, man. JJ Enigbare, Kingsley Enigbare, whatever we're going to call him, the King Man, right? The Sackinator, whatever. I don't know. But he looks ferocious out there too, man. He plays that game. I love guys that play this game with just a little bit of ferocity. They've got that. There's just a little more, when you see him. So he's going to be fun to watch this year in this defense, man.
Definitely. Jake, if you got anything else on defense, Bo?
I do. And then we can maybe jump into special teams and we can wrap this big bear up.
Hey, there it is.
There you go. Okay. So what I was thinking, though, what are you guys' thoughts on Stokes? It sounded pretty much like LaFleur said without saying it, LaFleur said he's going to start the year on the PUP. That basically means he's done for the 4 games to start the year. I'm not mad at that. If Stokes is worth anything, and I hate saying it in that way, like he's a commodity. If he is still an asset for the team with that injury, if he is still a really good prospect at cornerback, I'd rather him take 4 extra weeks and take the time to not force that. We are very deep right now at cornerback, and I just think that we need to solidify whether or not that was a good pick or not. So don't force him back while we're really heavy at that position. Let that guy take all the time in the world. Let him get all of the kind of like the aggression of maybe losing his jobs type feeling, make him really earn it kind of thing. And then my other question is the backup slot position. Ennis Gaines came back today. Other than Nixon there, who is a true slot backup at corner, and would that possibly make a guy like either Ennis Gaines, Shamar Jean Charles, or would they drop Ja into the slot so they could let guys like, I don't know, Carrington and Rasul on the perimeters there?
Yeah. When you talk about putting Ja in the slot, I think I'm in the minority with this comment, but I want my best players as close to the center of the field as possible. You've got extra defenders on the boundary. That's called the out of bounds line. Put your best defenders in the middle of the freaking field. And this whole talk at Ja's too small to play slot, BS, dude. BS. You're paying the guy over $20 million a year. If that gives your defense the best shot to win, put him out there. If you're playing quarters coverage, if you're playing that too high shell, you're deterring offenses from throwing over the top anyway. You're kind of wasting them on the perimeter unless you got a premier wide receiver out there.
Yeah.
You know, if you play a team, Jacob, where it's like, okay, this is hands down their number one receiver and he plays 90% of the snaps on the boundary, put Ja on that side and let him play boundary. I'm totally cool with that. But this whole, well, he's too small, we're wasting him in the slot if we put him in the slot, that's BS, man. Not in a quarters coverage.
I can back that up by firsthand experience watching him work with Coach Williams. And everything that they're doing with Ja is getting him to play up closer to the line, getting him to, quote unquote, play bigger than he is. And you got to remember, Jair can outsmart the guy that he's standing across. He can be bigger. He could be faster. I like watching him in the few times that we do get to see him press up. It's almost like he'll almost like let the guy get him off the line a little because he just trusts that closing speed that even if I'm beat off of that first move, I can close out and get a PBU or I can make a play on the ball. So I agree, Clayton, 100%. Why am I seeing them work on his technique closer to the line of scrimmage and closer to that, you know, quote unquote middle of the field area, like you're saying, if they're not considering that, you know? And certainly you can do a lot worse having to rotate Ja into the slot and then stick someone else on the boundary, you know? Like these are quote unquote good problems to have when you have depth like this.
Yeah, no doubt. Go ahead, Jacob. What were you going to say, buddy?
Nothing. No, I was just going to say that Anthony Johnson Jr. apparently has been shown out. So I'm wondering with Brenton Cox, Anthony Johnson Jr., certain guys like that, do you see, in my mind, I can see us only keeping 2 running backs, only randomly keeping 6 wide receivers, possibly only keeping 8 offensive linemen. So that would free up some space for guys because I just feel like Brenton Cox Jr. is just, he keeps showing potential. At least the potential to be a 5 or a 6 edge rotation. I don't know if he'd make it off waivers. And then that being said, if Rashawn Gary comes back week 1, which I do think he will, I think he's going to be more around that 40%, you know, snap share type thing. I don't think he's going to be back to that usual 65%. Oh, why did I do that? I meant, you know what I meant. But
67%.
67%. But if he is back at that 65, then I don't know exactly why. I have all the hope.
65%.
65%. That's what
late, but it was there. All right. So if he is that to me tells you how ready Rashawn Gary is to go. If they give him that, like if he's around that 40, 35, 40, really testing him, making sure he's doing that David Bakhtiari, testing the waters very, very carefully, or if they just throw him in and he's ready to go. I will say this. I saw him doing those 1v1s and some of those drills. He looks faster than I've ever seen him. And he looks more violent. The hands are moving like a freaking karate champion, dude. I'm excited.
Heck yeah. I want to address this question real quick, then we'll move on to special teams, and then we will wrap this big bear up. Tim Spangler in the chat said, what position do you think we'll address with the extra number 1 we get from the Jets next year? If it is indeed a number 1, for me, the answer is always best player available, preferably in a premier position. Tackle, don't want to hear it, but if Jordan Love doesn't look like a franchise quarterback, tackle, quarterback, edge, or a 3-tech type defensive lineman. You can never have too many of those. Look at Philly. Philly had one of the best defenses in the league, and what they do, they went D tackle again in the first round, right? Yep. So if I had to put the money on it, had to bet the farm, I would say interior defensive line, specifically a good pass rushing interior defensive line that could play somewhere between a 1 and a 3-tech, ideally. That would be my guess. So let's move on to special teams. And first question is actually about the punter here. This comes from Cheesehead Murph, a loyal listener. He said, I know it's not sexy, but what are we going to do? What are we doing at punter? Punter, for me personally, it's real simple, Murph. I want O'Donnell back there. I want the safer bet at holding. And I could care less if he can kick it a country mile or not. What I need him to do is be able to pin them deep in a strategic situation, but more importantly, be the best freaking holder that we could possibly have. That's what we need holding right now. The last thing we need with a shaky rookie kicker is to now throw in the mix a holder that can't do that job consistently. Do you guys feel the same way about O'Donnell, or do you like the young Irishman there that's been booming the ball, evidently, the other punter? What's his name?
Whelan.
Yeah, Whelan, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a thunder leg, that Whelan kid. He can bomb him when he wants to, when he gets a good strike on the ball. But I'm 100% with you, Clayton. You don't change the guard, man. Veteran leadership on this team is just by default, it's scarce. We're a young team, so a veteran in that position group, like as your holder and as your, like Clayton said, we got to pin you deep in a crucial moment of the game. I want that before I want to test the young kid, especially considering that we went that route with our kicker. So we don't, it's not him and Crosby anymore. So you've got to have some stability at one of those. So I would agree.
No, you guys are both wrong. We need a good old Irishman like Daniel Whelan, not some, guy named Patrick O'Donnell.
I love it.
I guess
there's a theme here. I'm just saying.
No, they're saying that we'd maybe save like $1 million if we were to cut Pat O'Donnell, like you guys said. Nah, keep the steady Eddie. I will say though, Whelan's booting the what of that ball. I don't know. He's been doing it very consistently too. So, I
feel like O'Donnell's got him beat on the placement though. Like where it's going and the type of the bounce he's getting. You can kind of just see him when they trade off. But again, I guess that comes with the experience, right? O'Donnell's in his, what is this, 9th season? Something like that? 10th season? I don't know.
Look at Ian says I'd cut O'Donnell and develop a younger guy. Ian says that. God, all right. Irish people need to stop talking in the chat and stop being Irish is in the chat. Yeah.
Love it. All right, kicker boys, here it is. And I'm going to go ahead and warn all the listeners. I'm going to get scolded by Tim right now. It's about to happen. All right. So the teacher's about to get hit with the ruler here. Anders Carlson, 2 of 6 today. It was heavy wind, and they said that it is notable, though, that both of the makes today, both of the kicks he made, O'Donnell was holding. That made me kind of think it was Whelan that was holding on all the misses, but they didn't specify whether O'Donnell was holding on any of the misses. He was indeed holding on the makes. Tim, let us have it, buddy. How we feeling about kicker?
I feel the same way. He's our kicker, whether we like it or not. But I will tell you that I don't know that it's necessarily the holder, because the few that I saw, I got to see out of those 6 kicks. I think I saw 3 or 4 of them today, and I saw one that was just, shank might be an understatement. Like it looked somebody threw a ball across the field rather than kicked one. And I don't know if that, I wish we could really look and see, like, how bad was that hold? To like, was the laces in, Dan? Were they that bad? So I worry, guys. My concern with Carlson is he in his head now? Because if it becomes a mental thing and you're thinking too much and you've got so much to work on, you're overcorrecting, you're recorrecting, you're adjusting, and now you don't have a consistent base anymore. So when you go up there and you take your steps and you line up, there really isn't a routine that's a solid foundation, and you're kicking balls that look perfect, and then you're kicking balls that look like disasters. There's very little middle ground. So it leads me to think, and I hope I'm wrong, but like, hopefully this isn't like the yips, or like he's got something going on in his head and he's overthinking it. Maybe some people would argue he's not thinking enough. I don't know, but no, it doesn't look any better than the last time we talked about our kicker, which was after the Patriots game. So I don't know, guys. I'll defend him. I love the kicking game.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
Hey, I understand. We got
Mason Crosby out of the mix. What does the free agent kicker market look like? Does it really look that appealing, guys?
Isn't it amazing? How many people are there in the world? Do we know a roundabout number? How many people there are on the face of the freaking earth?
Like 8 billion or something? Or
let's say it's 8 billion. Let's say it's 7 billion just to undershoot. there's not another single person on this big ball of mud that's spinning through outer space that can't kick a freaking football. Like, this always amazes me. And I know it's tough. I know I can't do it. I told you my story. I kicked a 47-yarder and pulled a butt cheek, couldn't walk for a week, right? I'm just saying, like, that blows my mind, Jacob.
Who's the YouTube guy? What about destroying? Let's get him to camp, right? I've seen him forking off 50-yarders, 60-yarders.
We've gotten so bad, we got to call in the YouTubers. Unbelievable.
Oh.
Hey, just fingers crossed, fingers crossed. This is my final note as we get ready to wrap up. I'm like a Baptist preacher. We've wrapped up 8 times now, right? And I gotta keep an eye on the chat here too. We'll come back to the chat, I promise, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and mark it so I don't lose my place. One of the things that was tweeted out today was Musgrave lined up out wide and they put Watson in the slot. And this gets me excited. This gets me really excited. I'm going to share the screen here, and this is a janky little setup, but we're going to do it anyway, just to have a little fun here. We're going to do a little ghetto style chalk talk here. All right, here we go. Y'all see the screen, right?
Oh, nice.
I want you to imagine this. Okay. First of all, we're on offense, right? Let's line us up somewhere right in here. Okay. Let's get these guys in here. Our offensive line. Okay. It looks like the left tackle's drunk. That's okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
All right. Let's go a sidecar. Let's go a little Y off, right? And let's say that's Tucker Kraft, okay? We're going to put Luke Musgrave out wide. Let's say Watson's over here in the slot and you got Dobbs over here. So we've actually got a 12 look, right? Now the defense has got to make a decision. Who are they going to put out here on Musgrave, flexed out, right? Who's that going to be? Let's go red here and make it stand out a little bit more. Who's going to be out there on Musgrave? That's going to be the question. Is it going to be a backer? Is it going to be a safety? Are they going to bring in an extra corner? If they bring in an extra corner, then you know what we do? We run the freaking football, right? We run it down their throat. But here's what's cool. When you look and you think about our boy Christian Watson right here in the slot, they said they ran and here's the thing. The tweet basically said they both ran crosser routes. So it could have been that they were lined up on the same side of the field. I took it as they were opposite side of the field. You had Christian Watson in the slot running a deep crosser, right? And you got Luke Musgrave running a deep crosser. Okay, if you're in a single high look on defense and you're this safety, you've got to pick your poison. You've got to say, am I running with Christian Watson or am I running with Luke Musgrave? And both of these guys are blazing freaking fast, right? Now, let's say that they are playing a zone defense, and that could have been the case. What's going to happen then? If they're playing zone and you've got another concept, let's say that you're just going to run a dig route right here with this tight end, right? And let's say you run a little leak on this side. Right? What is Dobbs running? Maybe he's running a hitch. Okay. So if you're playing zone and you got these defenders have to cover deep, right? Then you hammer this thing right here, right? If you're playing zone and the safeties are dropping back, right? Everybody's playing deep, then you can hammer this dig right here, right? And of course you got your safety valve down here in the halfback. But the main thing that stands out to me right there is if they are in man coverage, which there are a lot of teams that like to play man coverage, this poor safety right here, this poor bastard, what's he going to do? Who's he going to pick? Because all it takes, if you're in man coverage and you're in a single high look, this guy bends down on this, right? Whatever underneath, it doesn't even matter. The corner is trying to run with Musgrave on this side of the field. He's not going to be able to keep up. The corner's trying to run with Christian Watson in man coverage. He's not going to be able to keep up. It's going to literally be that same look we've seen with the Cincinnati Bengals game, guys, where Jordan Love just simply dropped back. And what did he do? His eyes were right here. He's reading that safety, and the safety went with Watson on that play, and he hit Dobbs. In this case, it may even be a linebacker in man coverage on Luke Musgrave. And again, if they go with a heavy corner, if they go with a nickel look against our 12 personnel, then what are we going to do? We're going to come right back around and we're going to hand this ball off and ram it down their freaking throat, right? That stuff, that type of matchup gets me excited when it comes to Luke Musgrave, because those are the things you're going to be able to do. We talked about it. We literally talked about it last night on the pod because, Jacob, you asked the question, right? You said, what does that do personnel-wise, right? The defense has got to make a decision. If they're coming out in that 12 look, they've got to either treat Musgrave like a tight end or they got to treat him like a wide receiver. And if they treat him like a wide receiver, then run the freaking ball down their throat because they got the extra DB in. If they're treating him like a tight end, turn his butt loose on that linebacker. I imagine that if we put him in that type of situation it's going to take one play from Musgrave before the league is put on notice that, okay, we've got to treat him like a receiver. And they might, the simple answer might be keep the linebacker in, but play zone defense. And when you start playing zone coverage, now everything underneath kind of comes open, right? You can really stress the defense underneath with different passing concepts. So I don't know, man. I geek out over that stuff. I get really, really excited when we talk about the potential matchups. The main thing, Musgrave's got to stay healthy, and he's got to establish himself as a legit threat before these defenses really start to give him the respect that I think he's going to earn. So, what do you guys think about that as far as Musgrave lined up out wide? Do you like the idea of it, Jacob?
I mean, I love it. Like I talked about as a fantasy aspect, this guy just keeps getting more and more of a glaring. And what's so weird is as a tight end, he falls to the very back end of the draft. Just pick him with the last pick. Romeo Doubs, pick Jaden Reed, and pick either Musgrave as your last pick of the draft. And I guarantee you those guys are going to perform for you. As just a regular Packer fan, I can't help but see Josiah DeGuara is going to be the H-back, more of a fullback role, it seems like. And they don't trust Tucker Kraft enough right now to do much of anything. So I think Musgrave is glaringly the obvious. And I saw another guy making some film breakdowns where it was during the Cincinnati game. There was a couple plays where he ran like kind of an outside. It wasn't a seam route. It was more on the boundary where he kind of did a double step and then took. I don't remember who it was. If it was Mike Hilton or one of the new guys that they were excited about, but he burned him. Tight end off the line. Cornerback had a good 5-yard cushion where he could run with him, and he still just turned up field, and he burned him. The ball, nobody even looked at him, whoever the quarterback was, didn't even see him. But after he made his break and started up field, within 3 or 4 strides, he had a good 1.5 yards of separation on him. And this was a full-on quarterback trying to cover a 6'6" or whatever he is tight end. And he would have that breakaway speed is unreal. I can't wait to see it in the real game.
Definitely. Tim, any parting thoughts, buddy? It can be about that or anything else, man.
Well, if we're going to stay on that, I would agree. I'd love to see Musgrave out there wide. And to your point, can you imagine being that safety back there? You want to get run by or you want to get run over?
How about this? How about this? Season opening at Chicago. They're all talking about the Bears have such great linebackers. I don't even remember their stupid names. They're so expensive. And then all of a sudden Musgrave gets split out wide, and then maybe Jaden Reed does some weird motion back and forth, and we get to see them. All of a sudden they split the defense. Now they're trying to hang with them, and imagine I can't. And then at the same time, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, where are they? What are they doing? You don't even know.
Yeah,
and it's just the chess match that I'm seeing now is just.
Here's another layer to the chess match. Imagine Luke Musgrave. Now let's kind of flip that. Musgrave is lined up on the left side, right on the boundary. Okay, imagine he's out there. You're looking at an isolation play out there, right, with him. And let's say they roll the covers a little bit. Let's say the safety stays back and he's helping over the top, right? You can have an overload on the right side and have him as a boundary X isolation play on the left. And on the right side, have a little RPO game. Literally have a run play called, a run RPO called, right? A quick bubble. And if they cheat to the box, covering the run, right? And they're showing a safety over top of Musgrave, fire a quick RPO bubble out to that flat, and you've got a hat count there. There's a number of things that come into play, and it's what gets you so excited because of what Matt LaFleur said. Matt LaFleur, what did he say? He said Jordan Love has complete command of this offense. We're not going into this year going, yeah, but we can't call that because of Jordan, or we got to hold that out because Jordan can't do that. He said he has full capability of running this entire playbook. It could get really interesting, guys. Really interesting.
Yep.
All right, let's get out of here. We're over on time. Surprise, surprise, right?
Shocking.
Eric, I want to share that chat on the screen so bad, but I can't, man. I appreciate it, though. I appreciate the enthusiasm. The Bears defensive backs can't cover dog food with a blanket. I love it.
True.
You said Murph, everybody, man. Really appreciate it. Hey, Tim, thanks for swinging by, man. It was awesome having you in the chat with us. Again, I want to give a special shout out to all of the members on the channel. again, it is going to come a time where there's going to be too many to mention. But the new members, C.L. Freeman, Dan Kite, United Bates, Jerry A., Chad Inc., James Jackson, Roger Davis, Eric Sutherland, and Cheesehead Murph. You guys are awesome, man. Really appreciate y'all supporting us. And like I said, if you want to become a member, you know how to do that on the channel. It's there's an easy way just to become a member. I'm not going to sit here and walk you guys through it. If you do it, great. If not, no big deal. Like I said, I just want to make sure that the people who have, please understand how much we appreciate that and all the super chats and everything else you guys have done to help us out. Also, I'm going to put this on the screen here in the upper right, Packernet Podcasts. The the QR code, you can scan that with your phone. That'll send you directly to Packernet Podcasts. If you like to listen to podcasts on the go, that's our network, Ryan Schlip's network, where you can find this podcast and many other great podcasts, including Jacob's Packernet Fantasy Podcast. So make sure you check that out and show those guys some love. Like I said, good content there. So we're out of here. Jacob, thank you for your time. Tim, thank you so much for the camp updates. We appreciate the videos you sent, man. That was a lot of fun being able to watch those videos for sure. So we're out of here. Thank you all for hanging out. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world, and go Pack Go.
The power sweep actually is the lead play in our offense.
Come a tackle, take the defensive end if he's over him. If he's not, you drive down the first man to his inside. Pull back and get him. Take the first man outside the offensive tackle. No one goes. Go right by them and field inside. If the YN has the linebacker taken out, he cuts inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. So look at this play. What we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here, and try to run this play in the alley.